Voice of Indonesia.
Well, listeners, Indonesia and Malaysia has established their relationship for decades, and until now, it is not a question that Indonesia and Malaysia, the two countries, have good relationship. And we know that August 21st is the Malaysian National Day, and 16th of September is the Malaysian Day. And today here in our studio, we have His Excellency Dato Syed Muhammad Hasrin Tengku Hussin, the Malaysian Ambassador to Indonesia. And today we will discuss about the two countries' relationship. How are you, Ambassador Dato Syed Muhammad Tengku Hussin?
Alhamdulillah, very, very good.
Very good. So, how long have you been here in Jakarta?
About 5 months plus.
5 months plus.
Yes.
After 5 months plus, so how do you find Jakarta?
This is my second time actually in Jakarta. My first tour was from 2010 to 2013.
2010 to 2013.
So about 10 years ago. So I've seen a lot of new development, and I think Jakarta has developed a lot. But being back here second time, it's not. I mean, the place is one that I'm quite familiar with, so I'm very happy to be back here to serve at the Embassy of Malaysia in Jakarta.
Okay, welcome to Jakarta.
Thank you.
Yeah, we know that when the Indonesian President Joko Widodo and the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim held a meeting 2 months ago, the two leaders witnessed an exchange of memorandum of understanding that had been agreed by the two countries. So there are about 7 MOUs agreed, starting from the border crossing agreement to halal certification. So your opinion, how can those MOUs contribute to the improvement of the two countries' bilateral relationships, and what is the current follow-up and implementation of all those 7 MOUs?
Well, those MOUs are new MOUs that were signed by Malaysia and Indonesia. We still have few MOUs that are still operational between Malaysia and Indonesia. As you know, we have a very comprehensive bilateral cooperation between Malaysia and Indonesia, which has been established for a long time. So this new MOUs that were signed by that were witnessed by the two leaders, the majority of them, like you mentioned, border crossing agreement, border trade agreement. There's also one MOU on investment cooperation, as well as memorandum of cooperation on halal certification. So that's 4 out of the total number of MOUs that were signed. They are related to economic cooperation, which is a focus that we are looking at this point of time, because I think at the G2G level, our relations are very good. As you know, Prime Minister of Malaysia already visited twice this year. First in January and the second time in May, to attend the first ASEAN Summit in Labuan Bajo. And in a couple of days' time, he will be coming again, heading the Malaysian delegation to attend the 43rd ASEAN Summit in Jakarta. And President Jokowi just visited Malaysia in June. So at the G2G level, we are quite happy and satisfied with the relations between the two governments. So our focus now is more on also to enhance economic cooperation between the two countries, as well as people-to-people cooperation. So the implementation of this MOUs would be very critical in terms of contributing to enhancing bilateral relations between Indonesia and Malaysia. As you know, I think it's also the same with Indonesia. For Malaysia, about close to 30% of our trade is with regard to our ASEAN neighbors at the border areas, and with Indonesia we share around 2,000 kilometer plus land border, basically between Sabah and Sarawak and Kalimantan. So definitely the signing of the MOU on BCA and BTA, which actually it's not new MOUs, but actually it's a renewal of the old MOUs. So it shows that both countries are very, very comfortable with each other, very happy with the implementation of those agreements. So that's why I believe we renew the MOUs again for this time.
So as you mentioned before, that there is about 30%, the trade between the volume of trade between Indonesia and Malaysia, or around 27.905 billion US dollar. So last week the Malaysian Parliament declared its support to the construction of the new capital of Nusantara, or what is popular here, IKN. So what kind of support will Malaysia give to Indonesia?
Our companies are also quite excited to participate in the development projects in IKN. Of course, we have to work very closely with the IKN authorities with regard to which areas that we think are quite suitable for us to participate depending on our capacities. But certainly we would like our companies that have the capabilities and experience already in terms of investing abroad to also participate in this development project in IKN. I think in January there were about 10 or 11 letter of intent that was signed during the first visit of Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim to Indonesia. So it shows that our companies are very excited with regard to the possibilities of participating in the development projects in IKN. And certainly the people of Sabah and Sarawak are also excited because now the capital will be closer to the state of Sabah and Sarawak.
Yes. There are 10 to 11 letters of intent during the first visit of the Prime Minister to Indonesia, and there will be the third visit soon.
Yes.
In September for the ASEAN summit. So is there something, the Prime Minister bring something new for the third visit soon?
Not really this time, because he's attending the ASEAN summit. So basically he is participating as the leader of Malaysia in the ASEAN summit. Bilaterally we do not have specific initiatives at this point of time, but certainly he will take sometimes to meet some of his friends and our Malaysian community here, which I think will also contribute to enhancing relations between Malaysia and Indonesia. Certainly he will be meeting President Joko Widodo during the summit, and so the focus is more on ASEAN this time. So we do not really focus on bilateral relations, but between leaders, when they discuss,
yes,
they may talk about how to further strengthen bilateral relations, and from there we will pick up, and as diplomats and civil servants, we will try to implement those understandings or decisions by the two leaders.
Yes, it is true that it will be not about the bilateral discussion or
Yeah.
conversation during the ASEAN. So, based on the position of Indonesia and Malaysia in ASEAN today, so how do you evaluate the two countries? I mean, contribution to the settlement to address the issues that the ASEAN faces today.
I believe Indonesia and Malaysia share a lot of common interests on many issues, not only regionally but also internationally, and we have been working quite closely together here in ASEAN, in the non-aligned movement, in the OIC, as well as at the UN, and certainly this strong and close cooperation between Malaysia and Indonesia is critical in terms of contributing to the development of ASEAN at the political security level, at the economic level, as well as the social cultural level, as we prepare also ourselves for the future. As you are aware, Malaysia will be chairing the ASEAN chairmanship in 2025. So we have to work together closely with the current chair, so that the agenda setting that is being set by Indonesia and also what Malaysia would like to do during our chairmanship will contribute to the further strengthening of the ASEAN community post 2025.
Yes, Your Excellency, we know that Malaysia is the second top country contributing tourists to Indonesia in June 2023. And last year, if I'm not mistaken, I attend gathering organized by the Malaysian Embassy, exactly the tourism, the tourism section in the embassy. So there are around 5.90 million visits, to Indonesia. Meanwhile, from Indonesia to Malaysia. Meanwhile, from the Malaysian side, there is a target of 2 million Indonesian tourists visiting Malaysia. So, besides the efforts of the Indonesian government, of course, there are also have been carried out by the Indonesian government. Of course, the number of visits by Malaysian to Indonesia to increase, vice versa. Means that what I got at the time, during the gathering, that there should be a kind of quotation balance visit between the two countries. So, what efforts have been made by the Malaysian Embassy to participate in encouraging the increasing inter-visit among the people of the two countries?
Last year, from our record, about 1.6 Indonesian visitors or tourists visited Malaysia, and about 1.3 million Malaysians visited Indonesia. This is still not at the same level before the pandemic hit us. So at that point of time, if I'm not mistaken, 3.6 Indonesian visited Malaysia, and about 3.3 Indonesians visited Malaysia before the pandemic. So we would like to reach this level again, if possible. If not, somewhere in between 1.6 to 3.6 million, so that as I mentioned earlier, other than economic cooperation, we would also like more exchanges of interaction between our two peoples, because people-to-people relations is also an important element with regard to strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries. So we are quite actively promoting Malaysians' destinations here in Indonesia, and I am sure your embassy is also doing the same in terms of attracting Malaysians to visit Indonesia. So the numbers are almost the same, 3 million, about 3 million
Yes.
before the pandemic. So it shows that the exchange of visits is quite balanced between Malaysia and Indonesia, and we hope more and more Indonesians and Malaysians will be visiting each other, because we share a lot of common elements culturally, ethnically, and etc. So we hope this cooperation between Malaysia and Indonesia will continue to strengthen in the years ahead. But what would be critical to bring this number up is in terms of connectivity between the two countries, be it at more flights between Malaysia and Indonesia, through the sea routes, as well as through the land routes in Borneo, in Kalimantan, and Sabah and Sarawak. And it's not only Malaysia that would like to increase connectivity between Malaysia and Indonesia. Indonesia would also like to do that, because I share a dinner with Pak Sandiaga Uno. He also mentioned that he would also like to increase connectivity for Malaysians to also visit Indonesia. And I think, as you know, Bandung, Jakarta, and Medan, as well as Bali, are some of the popular destinations for Malaysians to visit Indonesia.
Yes, it is true that flight, especially flight transportation, is up on the table during the gathering last year, discussed, and it should be 3.3 million. There should be an increase in the flight. Transportation by land also. Yes, Your Excellency, we agree that the two countries' cooperation has been existed for a long time. Now, before we come to the end of this conversation, this interview, I would like you to have a kind of closing statement to our listeners, because we also quite a lot of listeners in Malaysia, the listeners of Voice of Indonesia. What do you want to say to our listeners during this for this interview?
You mean Malaysians or Indonesian?
Indonesian.
It is, I think, the hope of the Malaysian government and also the people of Malaysia, as certainly for us at the embassy, for relations between Malaysia and Indonesia continue to flourish and to expand at all levels, at the political level, at the G2G level, government to government, as well as at the economic level, and certainly very important as well between the two peoples, because we share a lot of common values together. It would be very unfortunate if we would not be able to share these values, embrace it, and also, tell the world that Malaysia and Indonesia have very good, strong relations, and we share a lot of common interests. We can speak Bahasa to each other.
Yes.
I think at the UN, you were based in New York for some time as well. Out of 193 member countries of the United Nations, only 3 could converse in Bahasa. So Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei. So I think we should work closely with each other to show the rest of the world that there are countries from Nusantara that are very modern, progressive, and responsible members of the community of nations out there.
And one important thing, that this Bahasa, this language, which we one language that used in the United Nations.
I think our former Prime Minister delivering his statement in 2022 or 2021, he spoke in Bahasa. I think Indonesia leaders have also spoke in Bahasa. So it's something that we should also, make the world also understand that there are also Bahasa Malaysia, Bahasa Nusantara, which was a common or lingua franca in this region long time ago.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Excellency Dato Syed Muhammad Hasrin Tengku Hussin. Well, listeners and also viewers of the Voice of Indonesia, that was my interesting discussion with the Malaysian Embassy to Indonesia about the two countries' relationship, which has been for decades. I'm Dalat Pani. Thank you for joining us.
Voice of Indonesia.